Ask any valet, and they will tell you my worst pet peeve are valets that show up late for morning shifts. When I have morning shifts, I'm not talking 6 a.m., 7 a.m. These are 8 o'clock shifts. So even if you have a regular job, most of you have to be at work by 8 a.m. These valets will show up late and maybe once or twice a month, and it drives me crazy. I've tried to hit them financially and say, hey, you get a $10 fee or a $20 fee if you show up late. Even then, that doesn't even work. I try to buy them alarm clocks. I try to call them and all these different things. But valets will constantly show up late, and it's beyond just pissing me off. It's actually very much an embarrassment on the accounts that we work at. So if we're working a restaurant, a breakfast shift, or a high-rise building or something like that, or if you're covering someone that's working a 24-hour shift and that person's coming off of a midnight shift and you're getting there late, that's not responsible whatsoever. But I think some of these valets try to play games and sit there and say, you know what? If I keep being late, he's going to take me off the shift and put someone there. But no, I'm not going to acquiesce to their kind of demands in a sense. I'm going to force them to be there. And sometimes what I do, I try to even backdate the time and tell them to be there at 7:45 to get them there at 8 o'clock. But my biggest pet peeves are valets that show up late. This valet had the audacity, and I mean truly the audacity, to ask me, could he come in at 9 o'clock? I know the shift starts at 8 o'clock, but cars don't really start coming in until 9 o'clock, so 9:30. So can I come in at 9 o'clock? That's doing me a favor. Plus, I save money on gas. This guy drove a Toyota Corolla. They got 42 miles a gallon anyway, so what does it really matter? So after I tell him he has to be there at 8 o'clock, the next day, you want to guess what happens? He doesn't get there till 9 o'clock. He says he overslept. I am beyond pissed off with this guy. What do you think's going to happen? I was furious, and I really don't even know how do I react to a place like that. So I guess he could tell the anger that I actually had, and he actually quit. I'm glad he quit because this guy had no responsibility. And that was pretty much a slap in my face. But if you're going to ask me, can you come in at 9 o'clock? And I say, no, get there at 8 o'clock. And you still come in at 9 o'clock? What do you think's going to happen? He really should have been fired, but I'm glad he quit and got another job somewhere else. So good luck to them. Never heard from him again. So this next story is funny, but not funny. I laughed, but I didn't laugh. I got angry, but I really didn't get that angry. I get a call from, actually it wasn't even a call, it was a text message from Justin, one of our longtime employees, and he's like, I'm pissed. This is a time, and I didn't even know about this. Here's what happens. Some of the valets get so frustrated with stuff or situations that go on, but they don't tell management, valet management. So we don't know about it until it blows up and becomes a problem. Now, if this was something that they addressed with us earlier, then we can talk to the building, or we can talk to the restaurant, or talk to whoever we needed to talk to kind of rectify the situation. So what happened, the valet parked this car in the morning, and apparently this person whose SUV he drove had a problem with holding their bladder. So when he sat in the car, it was soaking wet, and he sat in pee. So he was pissed. He's like, I want to go home right now. And I'm like, Justin, it's going to take us like 45 minutes to get us a person there to cover you. I don't care. I want to go home right now. So I have to call the building right now and tell them what happened. And I don't blame him. I want to go home too, no question about it. You don't have a change of clothes. You don't bring a change of clothes with you. So he's like, let me just go in the bathroom and kind of wipe off and clean off and try to blow dry and just have someone cover the parking lot for about 10 or 15 minutes while I try to address myself. But what we did, we ended up getting a second person there so he can end up going home. But I don't even want to drive home without I have this. I'm literally going to have to take my pants off and drive so I don't carry that smell with me. But it was bad. There was nothing we can do. And since then, that happened a couple of months ago, this lady hasn't been in again because that was a problem, and that's disgusting. Now, this next story actually happened at another building, and this one affected me directly. We valet park at this building and we bring cars down, but there was a situation going on where they were doing construction in the parking lot. So they told all the residents, if you have any issues, call the valet company and we'll bring the car down for them. Well, this lady didn't have a car because she was disabled, but she had a bicycle, a three-wheeled bicycle, and she wanted us to bring the bike around, essentially pulling up the car or pulling up the bike or valet parking the bike. So the valets are looking at her like, are you serious? So one of the valets is like, hey, you know what? We're just going to bring your bike out of the garage and put it out in front and chain it up to the front of the building. The building was a little upset, but they said, you know what, that's that lady, do whatever it takes to keep her happy. So the next day she comes outside and it had been raining and she was pissed that her bike got wet. Now, bikes are waterproof and they're not going to rust, but she complained to the building that the valet company didn't give her bicycle the same care they would if there was a car. And to me, partly the short term of my brain is like, are you serious? I have other stuff to focus on than to bring up your bicycle. But then the other part is we have to treat her just like we treat everybody else, which is absolutely correct. But I'm like, are you serious? And she was texting me at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night, wanting us to bring her bike out. So we now have a new rule whenever this, and what happened, she is disabled and she wants to ride the bike at night. So sometimes 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning when there's not other traffic around. And it makes complete sense. She's not going to do it at 2 o'clock in the afternoon when the driveway is very active. So she wants to drive around the driveway, and it's like a circular driveway, and she just wants to ride around it as much as possible. So the next day I did see her out there, and I helped her as much as possible, and she's actually very happy with our service right now. Now this one almost gave me a heart attack. I get a text message from one of the other valet company owners. We're all pretty much friends or acquaintances, so we know what's going on. And also we like to communicate, so if something bad happens to us, we like to let other people know, so it can kind of go around the circle pretty quickly to the point where they might not be taken advantage of, just like we were. So I get a text message. He's like, hey Alex, I'm sorry about the Bentley. What Bentley? He's like, the Bentley that got stolen last night from XYZ restaurant. What the F are you talking about? Stolen Bentley? He's like, yeah, last night a Bentley was stolen from your restaurant. I was like, what? Hold on. So I called the valets. Same valets were working last night are working tonight. Hey, Austin, what the hell happened? Did a Bentley get stolen last night? They're like, yeah, we didn't tell you. Imagine my heart sank. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, oh, it wasn't our fault. I was like, oh, thank God. So that's the number one thing. Is it our fault or not? So what happened, this Bentley came in and it was driven by a chauffeur. It was the family chauffeur, and they pulled up to the restaurant and they let the customers go inside the restaurant and eat. Well, this customer or the chauffeur circled back around and pretty much put the Bentley next to the valet stand, but pointing outward towards the street. The driver kept the air going and he got out of the car. His keys were still in the pocket for the Bentley, but he went over to talk to the valet, maybe about 20 feet away. Well, some criminals were watching because they slipped in the car on the driver's side and took off in a brand new Bentley. So everybody finds out that a Bentley was stolen, but it was not the valet's fault. Now, obviously, you would assume it's the valet's fault because it happened in the valet section, but it was not our fault. Now, everybody said, I think the guy's name was Mac, he was going to get fired. He had been working with them for over 20 years. Chances are the Bentley probably showed up and it was a very poor mistake, but he shouldn't be penalized for it. It was the criminals that stole the car. I haven't heard any follow-up with it, but talk about me almost losing my thing. I almost had a heart attack that night, and that was one of the crazy WTF moments. And the final one I got sent to me just last week by Jonathan, one of our valets that watches. Thanks, Jonathan. This is just another day and a night of our craziness at one of our restaurants. So he keeps a dash cam on his personal car just to watch the crazy stuff that possibly could happen, including this right here. So as you can see, this pickup truck decides to slide into the parking lot, and I swear I thought he was going to take out all of these cars, but the tree stopped it, and he just essentially hops the curb, drives around, and speeds out of the parking lot as if nothing happens. Thank God there wasn't a valet there. Thank God the tree was there and stopped him from hitting about 3 or 4 cars, but this is some of the craziness that we deal with in downtown Atlanta.